Welcome to I Speak African. I'm your host, and in today's episode we're going to talk about IShowSpeed and his tour, his African tour. IShowSpeed has kicked off his African tour on December the 29th of last year, and he started with Angola. And what I like about what he's doing is that he's bringing positive attention to the continent of Africa. So far he's been to South Africa, and I saw that he went to go visit the Squat King. If you guys don't know who that is, it's a black South African man who he squats. He does like these squat exercises, and he has a really big butt, and I guess it's really. And then he trains other people to do the same squats that he does or the same regiment, and they also get really big butts. So I remember when I would see videos on like TikTok or whatever of this boy. I didn't know who IShowSpeed was or IShowSpeed was or Speed. I didn't know who he was. I was just like, what are these videos? And I would just see, I know the Squat King is. And then I would see this boy just like looking at these women's butts, and he would just be, in awe and shocked about how big their butts are. And I would just laugh. And then I was like, who is this boy? And I was like, Speed, who's Speed? And then so I would click on other videos and I would see who he is. Now, I think I saw a video a while ago back when he was on his Asian tour, when he was in China, but I didn't know who. Like I said, I don't know who he is. I don't follow him. I like him, but I don't follow him. And I was like, so I remember I just like clicked it off. But now, like, it's much more interesting because he's in Africa, and of course, this podcast is about Africa or the African diaspora. So, it's something that I'm really, I'm really proud to see. And also inclined to speak about. Now, like I said, I like seeing him in Africa. I liked it when he went to go visit Eswatini. And if you guys don't know, Eswatini is a small southern African country that was formerly known as Swaziland, but they changed it in, I think, 2018 to Eswatini because Swaziland was what the Europeans or the British called their country, and they were like, nah, we're not gonna call it Swaziland, we're gonna call it Eswatini. So they call it Eswatini now. Now there's this one clip that went viral of him in the Eswatini village, or one village in Eswatini, and he's talking to this really young girl. Well, actually they're the same age because he's 20 and she was 22 as well. And he was like, yo, where's your mother at? Where's your father at? And then she was like, my mother's at home. And then he was like, oh, okay. He was like, you married? And she was like, you could tell, like, she was just so shy. And then he was like, oh, okay. And then, like, her father came out of nowhere. And then he was like, how come she's not married? And the father was like, well, if you want to marry her, you got to propose to her first. And then you got to give me, pay the bride price. And he was like, how much is the bride price? And he was like, I forgot how many cows he said, but you can tell the girl was so innocent, and she probably thought that he was serious. I'm thinking like, like, you need to make this girl understand that you're just goofing around, like you're not being serious at all. But I like seeing how just the interaction between him and the girl and her father. It was very very innocent. But no, Speed, leave that girl alone. But I'm glad that she needs to stay in Eswatini, because if she were to come to America, she would end up with diabetes and a drug addiction. So that little girl from Eswatini does not need to come to know America.
You 20?
She does not. Stay there, marry a man from, maybe not maybe not your village, but another village.
Who your mom? Who your dad? Who your mom and dad?
Who's your mom and dad?
Home? Oh. You know the owner, right? Where he's at? Him right here.
Yeah, daughter.
Oh, that's your daughter?
Yes, first daughter.
Oh.
You want to give me cows?
Huh?
You want to give me some cows?
Yeah.
So propose it, then you come with your family, then we negotiate. She has to agree first.
Wait,
So you have to ask from her first. If she agrees, then you can come to the father, and then you can negotiate how many cows you can pay so that she becomes your wife.
How many cows do I have to give you so I can marry her?
17.
17 cows?
Yes. How much are we looking at?
17 cows. How much is 17 cows?
Because a cow can cost 5,000, 7,000. Emalangeni, our money is equivalent to the 5,000.
So 5 times 17, 5 times 17.
$250 a cow.
250
250 cows, $2,500.
$250 a cow?
Yeah. 20 cows for $5 grand.
Now, I watched the beginning of when he arrived in Kenya. I think that was yesterday or 2 days ago. And he arrived in Nairobi. It was like they were going crazy over him. You know, I really like how, even though he's an American, celebrity or YouTube streamer, that he's so big throughout the world, and he's so big, especially in Africa. You know, so when he arrived in Kenya, he kept saying habari. What is he saying? Habari, and then they were like Mzuri. He was like, huh, habari. I thought it was very funny. But I like how he was in Kenya. He was in Nairobi, and then I know he went to Masai Mara, but I didn't see that whole thing. I have to go back and watch the different streams of him being in these other African countries, because I haven't seen them at all. Even he's currently in Ethiopia, or he was in Ethiopia yesterday. I haven't seen that, but apparently the Ethiopians were going like, they're huge fans of him, which is very nice, and they were just screaming and welcoming him. So I have to see that. I remember when I was watching his stream when he was in Kenya. They were teaching him how to make ugali, and then he was gonna eat some ugali. The one thing is, I hope I don't know if he needed stitches, but when that cheetah scratched him, it looked pretty deep. I don't know if he needed stitches, but I hope if he got stitches, if he needed stitches, I hope he got them. I hope they sanitize that cut properly and everything. But I'm just glad he's okay. But like I said, he's in Ethiopia. I haven't watched that one. I'm going to go back and watch the rest of the streams and see how they are. But they're pretty long, so I think I'll have a good time watching them. But like I said, he's currently in Ethiopia. After he leaves Ethiopia, he'll go to West Africa and he'll visit Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Benin, Ivory Coast, Liberia. And then after he leaves to West Africa, he'll go to North Africa and he'll visit Algeria, Morocco, and Egypt. And that will conclude his tour. Now, I know he's going to get a lot of love from West Africa. We'll see how things go in North Africa. Egypt, well, Egyptians are pretty racist. I think he'll get the most love in Morocco and Algeria, but Egypt, and I know that whoever picked his itinerary, you can tell they did their research, because he's skipping over Tunisia and he's skipping over Libya, because those two countries, they're not, they're not safe. Libya hasn't been safe for a very long time. In Tunisia, they're, abducting people and doing all types of crazy things to people. So he does not need to go to Libya or Tunisia. And to me personally, after everything that's happened in Nigeria, if I was him, I would just skip over Nigeria, not because I don't like Nigerians or he doesn't like Nigerians, just because of like what happened to Anthony Joshua and even Chimamanda Adichie, in which I'm going to speak about in a bit. But as much as I appreciate what Speed is doing for the continent of Africa, the continent has some fundamental problems, which is leadership, and that's at all levels. And this is not me bashing Africa or saying that other continents or within other continents and other countries are better. No, because they all have similar problems. But we are on the subject of Africa since he's doing a tour in Africa, so that's what I'm going to speak about. Like I said earlier, I was speak about these two celebrities. In less than 2 weeks, Nigeria has had two major life-altering problems with two famous Nigerian celebrities. One is former heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua, and the other is renowned author Chimamanda Adichie. So if you guys don't know, Anthony Joshua, after he fought and beat not Logan Paul, but his brother, Jake Paul, he went to Nigeria to celebrate. I think he was doing Daddy December. And when he went there, he was in a car or SUV with his two best friends, who happened to be his personal trainer, and I think also like boxing instructor or something like that, and they lost their lives on the Lagos Lekki or the Lekki Ibadan like highway. They lost their lives because the driver wasn't driving well, and there was a parked truck that they crashed into. Yeah, and he also got injured too, and that was the worst part, his friends losing their lives. But to add insult to injury, the ambulance didn't even come. Like, people had to, like, innocent bystanders had to come over, pull him out of the car, and then they had to put him into a police vehicle. And it's like, what is Nigeria doing with all this money? And that's how you can tell. Nigeria is just stealing all the money from the people and from the country. And when I say Nigeria, I mean the politicians. They're stealing all the money, and they're not doing anything for the people. And then, 2 days ago, Chimamanda, her son, she has twin boys. One of those twins lost their lives. What happened was the son was sick, and they needed to check. They need to check up on him or provide him with a checkup. So they took him. He was at one hospital, and they were like, "We know we need to take him to another hospital." So they took him to another hospital, and they need to give him an MRI. So they were giving him an MRI, and what is common practice is, he's an infant, the baby, 21 months old. So the infant does not move. They administer, anesthetics. So the anesthesiologist administered too much propofol and did not monitor the infant while he was under, and he lost his life. Like, how do you not monitor an infant? That is the most gross negligence, most malpractice a physician can perform. Like, just being, and that's the issue with, especially Nigeria, but that's the issue with Africa. Like, a lot of these, the infrastructure is not there, and whether it's roadways or highways or just your neighborhood, like, the roads are filled with giant potholes, or if it's the educational system, or in this case the healthcare system. It was an infant. Watch the infant, watch the baby, make sure the baby's vital signs are stable, make sure that, and I'm no physician, but I've been in an OR before, I've been around doctors before. Watch the infant. And now she's suing the the hospital, of course, but that's not going to bring her baby back. And she even said that. She said, the loss of my child I will never be the same ever again, which makes sense, and I'm not on here to this tour is not meant to point out the flaws of the continent of Africa, but I wish that somehow, like, the flaws could be highlighted, because what this is gonna do is, yes, it's gonna improve tourism, but then once Speed leaves, it's gonna go back to business as normal. Like, that's what's gonna happen. And to be honest, like, it's not like his presence is changing the infrastructure of Africa. Just how Anthony Joshua's injury and the loss of his friends, and Chimamanda, the loss of her son, is not going to change the healthcare system in Nigeria. Like, it's not going to change until you either shame these politicians to the point where they're like, okay, yeah, we have to change it, or we just get new leadership. And that's what Africa needs. It needs new leadership, because Africa isn't just for tourism. It's meant to provide the people of Africa with a healthy and stable environment which they can live in. And it doesn't matter how famous the people are who come to Africa. It won't change until the mindsets of the leaders and the people, like, yeah, it's not just the leaders, also the people too. Like, y'all can't continue to vote for these, I hear it all the time. It's, people scream, it's fraud, it's cheating. Yeah, it is, but there are people who are voting for these politicians. That's how they're getting, yes, they're cheating, but there's also a handful of people continuing to vote for these politicians, and they keep getting in. Like, they're only there to make money, to steal money. They're not there to do anything for you guys. You know, it's the same thing in America. Look what's happening in America. Look what happened with ICE and that woman. And it's like, yeah. And people were like, oh, I didn't know he was going to be this way. Yeah, y'all knew he was going to be this way. He said it, you know? So, yeah, with that being said, you know, I wish Speed a good and safe tour, and I'll probably make more episodes about Speed's tour in Africa when his tour comes to an end. But thank you for tuning in to another episode of I Speak African. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you like today's episode, if you guys have any stories or confessions that you want to share with me, you can reach me at ispeakafrican12@gmail.com. And remember, the full episodes are available on Spotify. Until next time, stay blessed.